Yeah, so we're officially in a new stage of development, a new era for these portable power stations, because this new Jackery 2000, you might look at it and say, it doesn't look like anything special. It looks like all the other models. Well, the special stuff is on the inside because, yeah, this new model does have LFP batteries, and it's a direct replacement for the old 2000, which had NMC batteries. But guess what? This thing is actually smaller in every dimension and lighter than the version with NMC batteries. This thing's got LFP. So yeah, this is new territory. This is a first. And as far as the details here, like how much smaller, how much lighter is it? Well, actually, let's come back to that. We'll get into all the details on the size and weight here. Let's talk about, you're probably wondering how. You know what I mean? Like, how did they do this? How did they achieve this breakthrough? Well, one of the main things that has enabled this is this CTB technology. This is cell to body technology. And what does that mean? It basically means that the batteries are a structural component to the power station itself. Now, this technology is straight from EVs, from electric vehicles. So, you have all these battery cells in there, don't you? You have a ton of them. And these are actually, they're cylindrical. They're designed for safety to be strong. So, if you got a ton of these small, strong cylindrical cells, you might as well use them for strength and stability of the product itself, right? Because otherwise, you do the old route where you have a huge battery pack in there, but then you got to design the structure of the power station, either with like a lot of bracing within the plastic components themselves, or literally adding, some steel bracing as well. You get rid of all that. You throw it out the window. Now, of course, there's been huge developments in energy density in these LFP cells as well. The cells themselves keep getting better. They keep getting lighter for how much power they can store. And so basically, you combine these two things together, and Jackery's always kind of been good at making lightweight portable products. So they kind of had, they had a specialty in doing that, long before any of this new technology came. And so, yeah, the end result is that, they claim it's a 40% size reduction over the old model, which is this one in the background here. This is the old 2000. Supposedly. Now, if you watch my video on the new Jackery 1000, the version 2 1000, you'll know that they used kind of a similar graphic in the listing for that model as well, and it was way off. Way off. It was totally deceiving. And they're back at it. Hey, they're back at it. So this is not even anywhere near close. It's basically, take a look at it. It's basically like almost the same size as the old 2000, the NMC. It's just a little bit narrower. So like it's not quite as wide. It's about like 1 inch, maybe. Yeah, it's around an inch and a half, less in width. All the other dimensions are very similar. I mean, it's a hair smaller. So, this graphic here, actually, I think maybe you could say, well, what did they do? I think they meant to compare it to the 2000 Plus, which is this model here with the handle in the wheels. Yeah, the 2000 Plus, this thing actually has the same exact battery pack inside. Same exact watt hours, at least. And it does have the larger inverter. It's a 3000 watt inverter, and they do have the 30 amp outlet. So it's going to weigh more because it's got a larger inverter, but it's really going to weigh more and be larger because they have the suitcase style design, don't they? So I think actually this graphic was meant to, it was meant to kind of compare it to this model here. And in fact, as you can see, I threw this into Photoshop and I corrected it for them. So this is what it should be. And yes, this thing does weigh less as well. It weighs about 4 pounds less than the NMC 2000. And it weighs a whopping 22 pounds less than that 2000 plus suitcase, the suitcase version. So this is actually, this is by far the best on the market now, isn't it? This is by far the best in class. If you want a power station with 2 kilowatt hours and, a pretty large inverter, 2200 watts continuous, you're not going to find anything else less than 40 pounds. You're not. This is 39.5 pounds. And so while the size and weight is just incredible on this thing, it's not a perfect product. It's not a perfect product. And in fact, if you're watching this video, if you have a 2000 Pro, the old NMC version, and you're feeling like maybe, you made a mistake, maybe you should have waited, you should have held off to buy it, well, this might make you feel a little bit better, because the solar on this new 2000, this version 2, is not very good at all. It's not very good. This is just, and it's really bizarre, because it's got the same input ports, but they're limiting it to 400 watts. That's it. It's like a software limit. So this is weird. Of course, when companies do this, they're trying to protect other products in their model line, usually. So they don't want this product to be too good, and then nobody's going to buy the other models, I guess. So, what are we talking about here? It still has those dual inputs, which is great. I love having, 2 inputs for solar or DC, any kind of DC source. And it's the same specs. So it's 11 to 60 volts. And if you're doing at least 16 volts, you can do actually 12 amps. Okay? You can do 12 amps per input. So 60 volts at 12 amps, in theory, you could do somewhere around 700 watts, right? In theory. I mean, if you have solar panels with a high enough voltage, close enough to 60 volts, you would never actually get that, but you get the idea. In theory, you could do 700 watts. And that's what the old 2000 with NMC batteries was rated for. It was rated up to 700 watts on each input for a total of 1400 watts, because there's 2 inputs. So this new model has those same exact input ports, 60 volts, 12 amps, but they're putting a cap of 400 watts max total that you can do from DC. And of course, this is really weird too, because, it can fast charge from the wall, right? I mean, it can fast charge from the wall 1500 watts. So, it's not that it's not capable of fast charge. So yeah, if you got one of those older Jackery Pro models where they basically just let you put as much solar as as you possibly could into it, you might want to hold on to one of those. You might want to keep that model around, just in case there is, an SHTF event and you're going to, be relying on solar power. So, but I guess what is the argument for the casual user? Yeah, 400 watts is enough. It's enough, and then all you got to do is they're marketing this as being extremely portable, right? So I guess you wouldn't be bringing 1400 watts of solar panels with you anyways, right? It's enough just to carry those 200 watt panels. But there is some good news here with the charging. Yeah, it's that they moved it, just like the version 2 1000, they moved the inputs to the side of the product, to the side, instead of on the back, right? Because that was a horrible design to have it on the back, because then you couldn't push the power station up against the wall, right? Especially if you're in a van or an RV somewhere where space is limited, you would want to do that. And you couldn't because if you had input going into it, you'd have to have the cables, and even just accessing the inputs, right? It would be difficult. So yeah, this is awesome. It's on the side, and there's no covers, there's no flaps. You can just go right at it. Of course, this is following suit with the fact that they got rid of the flaps on the light and the 12-volt socket as well, right? Which I just love this. You don't want to have to deal with the flaps. The product is not waterproof. You know what I mean? There's cooling vents. All the ports, like the AC ports, USB ports, those are all exposed anyways, right? So unless you had the product completely sealed, it didn't make any sense to have some of the ports covered. You know what I mean?